Hello everyone and welcome to another E3 2017 recap and review video on GamerSlice. I'm Jared and in this video I'm going to be recapping and reviewing Microsoft's E3 press conference. So right out of the gate, let's make it very clear what Microsoft needed to accomplish this year at E3. First, they needed to reinstill gamers' confidence in the Xbox brand by bringing back exclusives, which they've had a sore lack of in the past year or two and in the near future. And then two, they needed to properly support the Scorpio and present it in a way that attracted people back to Xbox and actually sold you on that concept. And much of that support would involve what I just mentioned by revealing lots of Xbox exclusives and why you would want a Scorpio to have the best experience with those games. Now, in fact, I've done quite a bit of research on this very issue, and just recently I've written a relatively short 8-page business report for a business communications class I'm taking in college, talking about this very thing. And I may post that at some later time. Maybe I might link it in this video. If I decide to post it online somewhere, maybe on a WordPress site or something like that. But I basically went into it saying, here's Microsoft's problems that are resulting in the lack of exclusives, and here's how the Scorpio and some other actions can help solve this problem for Microsoft and make them more competitive with Sony. There's honestly more to it than competing with Sony and beating out the competition, but as far as the general public sees it, that's as far as it goes. So the first thing Microsoft led with this year was Project Scorpio, which they've officially revealed that the name is the Xbox One X. I'm not particularly excited about the name, nor am I dismissive of it, but it does seem like there could be some confusion with the Xbox One X and then the Xbox One S, and some people, if they're not educated on what different systems are, they might end up buying something, like the example is brought up, somebody buying like a Christmas gift for somebody. It's like, oh, Xbox One X or Xbox One S, which one did they want? Which one should I get them? Well, I guess the cheaper one. So they might get the Xbox One S. But the Xbox One X, the name, the X, if you watch the conference, you'll figure it out. But basically, it's based on a motto that the original Xbox team had, which was like the power of X or something. I don't know. I can't really remember what it is. It was an okay motto, but it basically was something that was, I guess, kind of nostalgic, I guess you could say, for the Xbox team. And that's why they called it Xbox One X. It held weight for them. So the power specs, which we've actually, I know to heart after doing that report, we've known them for some time. The cool thing with the specs, of course, it makes the most powerful console of all time, and it allows true 4K, the whole package, 8 million pixels, and also Dolby Atmos, like surround sound or high quality sound. So that's really cool as well. So that was the first area they emphasized with power. The second was compatibility, which the current Xbox One games will play and look better through super sampling on the Xbox One X. And it's very similar to like DVD played on a Blu-ray player, where the DVD looks better. And then the third category they emphasized was craftsmanship. And the Xbox One X runs on the Scorpio engine, which is the best processing unit in a console to date. It's built on the Hobus method, which is basically a system of power management, so it's very efficient in that, and it's also the first console ever with a liquid-cooled processor. So it's quite powerful, and I would estimate, we'll get to the price later on, but they're probably selling this thing at a pretty significant loss because of how powerful it is. It's still not like high-end, like maybe Titan X card gaming PC or even like 970 gaming PC or better, but it's probably somewhere up there in like the lower high-end gaming PCs is my guess. This is also the smallest Xbox ever, which honestly blew me away. I expected this to be maybe slimmed down a bit from the Xbox One, but the smallest Xbox ever, that is very impressive. So whether or not it's going to be the size of the PS4 or the PS4 Pro, which I think might be smaller, we'll have to see. But as far as Xbox goes, it's the smallest. And the first game they led with on the new console is Forza Motorsport 7. And as they did last year, there's kind of a thing with Microsoft unveiling new cars or whatever. I think last time it was one of the first things. This time, though, it was an actual debut of the Porsche 911 GT2 RS. So worldwide debut on Microsoft's E3 stage. Honestly, some people might take objection to it. I don't know. I kind of think it's cool that they unveil cars there. It shows that they're kind of, I guess, passionate. they talk. They're trying to make these games really realistic, and they have partnerships with these companies. I mean, it may not get most gamers excited, but I don't know. I think it's an okay thing. It's not something they need to like absolutely like, oh, get rid of it. It's terrible. It's ruining the show. So, but Forza Motorsport 7 looks solid. It's possibly the best circuit track racing game to date, and it runs 60 FPS in true 4K on the Xbox One X. And the rain droplets on the windshield, a lot of people might think, oh, that looks really cool. Like Drive Club, I think, has done it the best. Of course, some races in Drive Club, even in the PlayStation Plus version that you play, so much frickin' rain you can't even see where you're going. It's kind of ridiculous. In Forza Motorsport 7, the rain droplets and all the physics, all the graphics looked really good, but sometimes the droplets looked a bit fakey. Maybe if I saw them in person on the screen running in 4K, it might look more realistic, but other than that, I mean, the game looks absolutely amazing. Microsoft this year had 42 games to show and 22 with console exclusivity. I'm not exactly sure if they showed every single one of them on the stage. I think they probably did, but they had at least 42 games at E3, and they showed the 22 games with console exclusivity, which is a somewhat new term, which basically just means when it comes to consoles, it's coming exclusively to the Xbox console, which basically means they're going to be on PC as well. And real quickly before moving on, for some people that have watched the conference, they might say, why did they lead with Forza Motorsport 7? Because we've seen a lot of Forza stuff before. Why didn't they lead with the next game? Mainly the reason for that would just be because Forza is synonymous with Xbox, so it's a pretty iconic exclusive out there, so they're going to want to lead with something like that. So moving on, the next game they showed, which probably is my most hyped game that we've seen at E3 up to this point, it's a new Metro game. As soon as they showed some of the gameplay at the beginning and opened it up, I was like, I could immediately tell it was a new Metro game because it kind of opened with like the same shot that you remember from the Metro 2033 trailers where everything's covered in ice and everything. So I'm like, oh, is this going to be like Metro 2035? Because Last Light was kind of Metro 2034, like based on that book. I haven't read that one yet, but I've read Metro 2033 twice. And it also seems like Metro might have an open world. The game's official name is Metro Exodus. It's coming 2018, and there's a bunch of things to notice right off the bat. I guess it was in-engine, kind of like gameplay stuff, but they added a little bit of it's kind of like with Ranger mode, where there's no HUD, but there's also a bit of post-processing stuff, maybe stuff that they did to make the demo look a little bit better as well. You start in the Metro, which is kind of what we've seen before. Graphics seem improved, but when your character, I'm assuming it might, well, I don't know if it's Artyom. It's probably not Artyom anymore, because he's dead. Spoiler, sort of. Well, it depends, but it's probably not him. So, when he walks outside, he takes off his mask. This is part of why, like, the title is probably Metro Exodus, because there's an exodus, there's a leaving from the Metro tunnels. People are starting to maybe inhabit the world, the outside world. And at the very end, you actually see there's like a locomotive going along the tracks that you jump onto. So yeah, people seem to start actually inhabiting the outside world now, which is really cool. But it's still a very dangerous place with tons of monsters and perhaps other dark ones, which are sort of a threat, sort of not a threat. A lot of people perceive them to be, though. So you can breathe outside, and also your character pulled up a map in his hand, very similar to what the Far Cry 2 map was like, which if you've played that game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I think it would be cool if they had that. I mean, they even had it in Metro 2033 like that, but I feel since it seems like it's probably going open world, I don't know if they've confirmed that or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have a very similar map system to Far Cry 2 where you switch the map out based on certain like grid areas. There's probably not going to be any menu for a map because one of the major things in Metro is they like to add the options in there to make the game as immersive as possible. So really cool. The other good thing about the game is like the physics seem amazing and the animations are amazing. There's like small subtleties, like also when you shoot an animal or a creature, he shoots a creature with a crossbow and he goes to actually retrieve the arrow and he like puts his foot on it and pulls the arrow out, It's really cool. It's possible that was just for the demo, and in the real game they'll just have like a contextual button, or you'll just click it like in the previous Metro games, and then boom, it'll just take the arrows out, and there's not going to be any animation of grabbing that. But that would be cool if there was. Although, you know, some people, if they would need to add the option to turn it off, because some people might not like going through that animation every time. And then when he was fighting one of the monsters in the demo, there was a cliffside, and the monster was sliding off the cliffside, and there was loose rubble, right, loose stones. And even as he was like running next to the cliffside and bumped into some of the rocks, they would kind of like roll and then tumble over. It just looked really cool. The physics were great. The animations were fantastic. I'm really excited for this game, and I really wish I would have live streamed the conference, because it was definitely like my most hyped moment of E3 altogether. Also, Metro Exodus, at first I was thinking maybe it's going to be a Windows 10 and Xbox exclusive, but no, it is coming to all platforms, so don't worry about that if you're a Metro fan. So we spent a lot of time on that, and I'll try to move through the rest of this a bit quicker. But next they showed Assassin's Creed Origins, and this is before the Ubisoft conference, and it's going to be, you know, ancient Egypt, and it's basically going to be exploring the origins of the Brotherhood, which is neat. So the Brotherhood, we now know, originated in Egypt. Now, Assassin's Creed has had a year off, and I think it shows in a lot of ways, but the big question is it enough? Well, only time will tell. But they seem to have added a lot of new RPG elements to it. I don't want to say full RPG, but to an extent, like, there are very, very significant RPG additions to it. Like items have tons of stats now. You have menus. It seems fairly simplistic stats, but, you know, there are stats like probably damage, maybe attack speed, stuff like that. And, you know, there's a level system. You level up and whatnot. Also, the item screen is very Destiny-esque. Even the little ring cursor thing that you use to navigate the menus in Destiny, that's in here for the items and equipment screen. So in terms of the story, you play as Bayek, who is the last Magi, who is not spelled the same as like the Magi, you know, like the wise men in the Bible. It's got some weird, like, it's more like Magi or whatever, but they pronounce it Magi. And he's basically just this ancient protector, or a guardian, kind of, and some people recognize him as that, but he's the last of his kind. And of course, then he, you know, creates the Brotherhood. And the eagle, this time, or not the eagle, the falcon, is controllable and used for scouting, which I don't really like the scouting in Ubisoft games. It kind of drives me nuts. But as long as they have eagle vision, and as long as the scouting mechanic through the falcon is not absolutely essential to gameplay, as long as you're not going to suffer from not using it, then I'm totally fine with it. But it should just be an optional thing that kind of adds a slight extra element of preparation. And the last thing to mention about Assassin's Creed Origins is the combat. They've totally revamped the combat. It's now more substantial. I'm very glad that they're doing this. However, it does look a bit rough around the edges in some ways. You know, with the item screen, obviously that just shows that, you know, there's going to be actual purpose to getting a lot of new weapons, and maybe there's going to be more reason to actually engage in combat in certain circumstances rather than just being entirely stealthy. But as I said, it does look kind of rough around the edges. But it does kind of go for almost a Souls-like system, where there's lots of dodging, and they might be taking an approach to having boss fights in this game, which I think is actually quite a cool concept for Assassin's Creed, because for the most part, they haven't had anything that you generally think of as boss fights. It's more like key characters, and you may have to approach them in a more elaborate way than taking out normal enemies. But generally, there's nothing that you would think of as a boss fight. And here, there seems to be. So there's lots of dodging and stuff like that. However, the animations, the melee animations, are like 3-4 frame animations. They're very choppy, very janky. They need lots of work. Of course, they have time to improve that, but it almost seems like it might be a stylistic choice that they're going for with that. I hope it's not, because honestly, I don't think it looks good. And also, they do this thing kind of like in Batman or Mad Max or Shadow Mortar, you know, that type of combat system, where sometimes when you're in like a free flow type of combo, it slows down time at certain moments, or when you counter. And they're doing that here, and a little bit of that is okay, but it happened a lot in a very short combat sequence that they showed. So, I don't know, I just don't think it really fits the Assassin's Creed game, almost regardless of how they change the combat up. But the combat still looks promising. I'm glad they're actually doing something to make it more interesting. And Assassin's Creed Origins is coming out October 27. Next up, Microsoft transitioned to something called Mixer, which is basically a new video streaming site similar to Twitch but it's basically built on the entire idea of audience participation, slightly more so than what Twitch is. And I looked into it a bit. It seems like a pretty solid video streaming site, and probably pretty reliable streaming as well. But they kind of use that to segue into PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which is coming to Xbox. It's an Xbox console exclusive, which of course means, you know, it's on PC, of course, and the only console it's coming to, it's exclusive to the Xbox console. But there's also this new term they use called a console launch exclusive, which to me just seems like another word for timed exclusive. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Eventually they may start using another word later down the line, but a lot of people don't like the term timed exclusive, so it's like they're trying to get people to think, no, it's not that at all. But to me, it really seems like it is. But that's coming late 2017, and they have mixer integrations with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds in a big way. Then they showed off Deep Rock Galactic, which just seems like a little fun co-op experience. It's kind of got what I would refer to as a polygonal art style, very similar, like Super Hot, you know, where there's like lots of like polygons basically. It wouldn't be cel shaded, but there's not tons of textures. Maybe people that play Minecraft might like this, but that game also has full mixer integration, and it's a console launch exclusive, which, as I said, probably means it's going to be coming to PS4 and maybe something like the Nintendo Switch in, you know, probably within the next few years, a relatively short time period afterwards. Next we have one of the big Xbox console exclusives that we were hoping to see, which is State of Decay 2. It's announced that that's coming spring 2018. I wasn't really following it too much. You know, I don't own an Xbox, but I can play it on PC because it's a console exclusive. But it's also coming to PC on the Windows 10 store, so I might play it at some point. But it seems like it's a more interesting, like, Left 4 Dead game to me, so I might actually take a look into it. And it seems like it's delivering what fans will want. And by the way, the stuff they showed for it was quite extensive. I'd say it probably went almost about 10, probably like 8 minutes of that game, 8 to 10 minutes. So pretty substantial look. Not too much gameplay stuff. Some stuff that look like be gameplay, but definitely in-engine stuff. But it shows you what you're going to do in the game. After that, we have what seems like a small game called The Darwin Project, which is also a console launch exclusive, and it seemed up my alley. It's not a MOBA, but it's got a cartoon aesthetic, and it's one of those, I guess, hero shooters, or I guess you could call ability shooters, but it's not exclusively a shooter. It's a third-person game, and you know, there's like bows and probably melee and stuff like that. So it's very much centered around that deathmatch kind of thing. This is like, seems like free-for-all, probably. I'm sure there's going to be different modes, but the main mode they showcased was a free-for-all mode, and the way they presented it was with this guy. I don't know exactly who he is. Maybe he's just somebody who likes doing esports stuff for fun, but basically he was an esports announcer, and the way they portrayed it was kind of interesting, and almost was, I guess, playing on like a Hunger Games type of theme in some ways, as the game sort of is as well, or just that general concept, maybe not trying to emulate Hunger Games per se. But of some of the smaller projects, I thought that was one of the more elaborate announcements at Microsoft's conference. And then we had Minecraft stuff, yada yada yada, don't really care. But there's 4K coming fall 2017, and there's also going to be a super duper graphics pack, which actually turns the game into some, like, changes the graphics in a way that I kind of like, to be honest. Of course, I'm not a Minecraft player, and it probably won't get me to play it just because of that. And then, of course, they were also saying, hey, it's going to be, you know, unified across PC and Xbox. And then there was a weird thing. Basically, Phil Spencer came out and said, everything here that you've seen is pre-orderable on the Xbox store today. And then all the adults in the audience applauded. Like, why? No, you're supporting pre-order culture. This is what's wrong with games, and I don't know, I'm sure people like Total Biscuit, I don't know, didn't watch any of his stuff. He probably had something to say about that. Jim Sterling's probably going to have something to say. Even Angry Joe will probably say something. I mean, I'd hope he'd say something. Hopefully he doesn't get too hyped from this E3. But people are going to have something to say. This is the press here supporting pre-order culture. And if these are the people that are, I don't know, maybe, see, I don't understand. You wouldn't applaud out of, like, just feeling like obligated to do that, because who would feel obligated to applaud, like, hey, take our money before you've proven that your product is going to be good, you know? So I don't know, that was just kind of stupid. What the heck, people, get your shit together, gaming press. And then Microsoft showed off Dragon Ball FighterZ, which it was just a world premiere for that, so I'm pretty sure it's coming to like PS4 and all that, and it's coming early 2018, so it's just a Dragon Ball fighter game, like, you know, like Mortal Kombat or Injustice. Then they showed off the MMORPG Black Desert Online. At least I'm pretty sure it's online. They just said it was Black Desert, but the only Black Desert I know of is Black Desert Online, and I don't know why they would just do like a single player experience for Xbox One or something. So I'm assuming it's basically just a port of Black Desert Online, which, you know, I've heard a lot about it in the past, or seen a lot of it. I don't really know too much about it, but it seems like that game's been like lauded for superior character customization and character creation compared to other MMORPGs. And that's going to be a console launch exclusive. Now, the next game they showed off was an indie title, and it really intrigued me. It's called The Last Night. It's a console launch exclusive. Just off the bat, the first impression I got is this is the most visually impressive 2D sort of pixel art game I've ever seen. Absolutely stunning visuals, and there was almost kind of like a 2.5D kind of aspect to it as well. And it's a cyberpunk game, and I've sort of had an interest for cyberpunk in the past, but recently I've gotten into it quite a bit. So I'll probably pick this game up day one on the Steam store, and it's coming 2018, I believe. No confirmed exact release date or release window for that yet. It's just next year sometime. Next, we had a somewhat similar game, just in the fact that it's kind of like a 2D, 2.5D type of game, but this time it's a platformer, very similar to Little Big Planet in some ways, and it's called The Artful Escape. I would describe it as a rocker brawler platformer. It's weird new genre that might start, but I would think the game is musically driven. And one thing that I really liked about the presentation of it is at the end when they showed the release date, it just said coming when it's damn ready. It's like, we're not gonna make any promises to you. It's gonna be ready when it's ready, and I like that. In some ways, that makes E3 a little bit less of like a hype machine and more of just here's what's coming, here's what to expect from us. Don't put your money down yet, but just know that this is in the works. Again, there is still a little bit of hype, but I feel like it tones down the hype or presents the hype in a bit of a different way, more pro-consumer. But overall, The Artful Escape is a very artsy game. Next up, we have a game called Code Vein, which is an Xbox exclusive. I'm pretty sure that's what they said about it, so unless they didn't add console exclusive in there, this may actually be a genuine Xbox exclusive, not coming to PC or anything like that. I would describe it as a Final Fantasy inspired Souls-like, but we really don't know much about it. It was kind of just like a teaser. I mean, it's like just dark Japanese Souls-like with more fantasy than what Dark Souls or something like Neo, for instance. Perhaps a better comparison might be just it's very similar to a Platinum Games type thing. Kind of maybe a little bit of Nier Automata mixed in there as well. Overall, a fairly interesting looking game, and if that is indeed an Xbox exclusive game, it seems like it could be a very strong title, but again, we're going to need to know more about that, and that's coming in 2018. Next up was Sea of Thieves, which I think of as being the strongest Xbox console exclusive. Again, it's coming to the Windows 10 store, but that's probably one of the strongest games in their lineup. It's kind of original, and as long as they deliver on the strong co-op and even Twitch live streaming experience that they're promising to deliver, I think this could be maybe even Game of the Year material. And as long as they also have to deliver on that, that pirate fantasy thing. That's coming early 2018. There was a pretty lengthy segment dedicated to this, probably about like a 10-minute gameplay thing. But I like the humorous narration. It was very entertaining. Set the game in the right mood. I've also liked what I've seen since reveal, just overall. It seems like a very unique experience, and as I said, perfect for streamers. Also, the riddles and treasure hunting aspect of it, I think, was pulled off in a very good way, a very immersive way. And the naval combat also looks exciting, and since it's co-op experience, like each person would like control a cannon individually, so it's almost like Guns of Icarus or something like that. Only it's at sea, and you're fighting other people in an open world, and there's more to it than just that ship combat. And also the boarding was really interesting. You could actually load yourself into a cannon and shoot yourself onto the enemy ship to board it and take it over. I'm definitely going to play this one. There's no way I'm missing out on it, unless absolutely none of my friends want to play, in which case I will be very sad. So next up we had Tacoma, which I honestly don't know too much about this game. It seemed like when they first revealed it like a couple E3s ago, I thought it looked interesting, but it's basically still another teaser right now. It's coming August 2nd, and it's a console launch exclusive. And they also showed off Super Lucky's Tale. So Lucky's got his own franchise or own game now. That's also a console launch exclusive. It was the world premiere for that game, and it's coming out November 7. What came next was a bit confusing to me because they showed off Cuphead and said it was coming September 29, but I had thought that Cuphead had already came out. I mean, like, I could have sworn I saw reviews of it and other stuff. I mean, maybe it did. I don't know. But anyways, September 29. Nevertheless, I still think the game looks cool. It almost seemed like when I thought I had heard about reviews, the reception to it was not as good as what I was hoping for. But if I'm just going crazy and that didn't happen, then it's good because this game could be absolutely fantastic. And I thought this was one of the most unique small titles or indie titles that was coming to Xbox. So it's a console exclusive or Xbox exclusive, not quite sure, but definitely a good one to look forward to if you have an Xbox. And then they showed off Crackdown 3, one of the other big 4 exclusive titles that we know of. That's, console exclusive, still coming to Windows 10. It's coming out November 7, and I thought that the celebrity, sometimes they do the celebrity trailers for the videos, and Terry Crews was part of that. I thought he's pretty entertaining. I like Terry Crews. So, I don't know. It's not super up my alley, but I'd probably play it. It almost seems like Agents of Mayhem, like the Saints Row spinoff thing, is going to be fairly similar to that in a lot of ways, just with a little more goofy elements to it, as Saints Row normally does. But Crackdown 3 still looks like a solid experience. I know a lot of people have been hoping for it, so I'm glad they're gonna get it this year. From there, Microsoft moved into a montage of the ID at Xbox program, which is indie developers on Xbox, and there's right now 500 plus games on Xbox, indie games. Pretty impressive, but I think PlayStation probably has a lot more, probably closer to like 1,000 or so. And then you include PC, and then, I mean, given a lot of stuff is just like Steam shovelware and like asset flips in some cases. But, PC is definitely the king of indie. So, cool montage. And out of that montage, they showed a lot of games. Just here's some of them that I found to be interesting. Osiris, New Dawn, which is already on PC. I think it has been for a while. Paladins, which I've played a lot on PC already. Raiders of the Broken Planet, which I thought looked really cool. Unruly Heroes, Fortnite, Surviving Mars, Battlerite, Observer, which is like a cyberpunk horror thriller game. I saw a little bit of gameplay about that before. That looks really cool and very unique as well. Conveying horror, like almost seems like it could revolutionize the horror genre in a different way, because it seems like what they're doing there has never been done before. And then Fable Fortune, which looked really cool. It's a trading card game. Seemed pretty solid. The aesthetic looked good at least. And then Path of Exile, Dark and Light, Strange Brigade, which I feel that game could go either way, be really bad or really good, but it looked cool. And then Shift, which was kind of like a 2D platformer, brawler fight or something like that. Kind of reminded me of Ronin a bit, I think, though Ronin, I think, had the like time mechanic or something like that. This seems just like a normal brawler, but it kind of seemed like cyberpunk, ninja-esque, sci-fi-esque. That was kind of cool, but that was a pretty good number of the games they showed in that montage. So all those look pretty cool to me. Next up, we have another small game, I'm pretty sure an indie game. It's called Ashen. It's console launch exclusive. This was its reveal. All I can say right now is it has a very distinct art style, and people don't have faces. It almost seems like Virginia. Did Virginia have faces? I don't really remember, but people didn't have faces, and they were kind of like exploring this like dungeon or ancient like ruins and stuff like that. But it looks like it might be like a mix between a 2D and 3D kind of adventure game. Not really sure, but it would be a worthy game to keep an eye on because it seems like it has a high storytelling potential. And then, of course, they revealed Life is Strange Before the Storm, which is a prequel to the Life is Strange Season 1, or the Life is Strange series, however you want to look at that. And that's coming out August 31, and this time it's only a 3-episode prequel, so, we're going to be looking at, like, Chloe's backstory and Rachel, who we know from the first game. Or know of, rather. As far as hype goes, I wasn't super hyped for Shadow of War, but that's what they showed next, and honestly, this is probably, like, my second most anticipated game that they showed it this year at E3. It's coming out October 10, so it got pushed back a little bit from its original, like, August release date, I think by about 3 weeks or something like that. They know that the Nemesis system is their bread and butter, and they've really expanded upon that. Quite frankly, it's awesome now. You can even, like, make allies with the Uruks, and they offer benefits to you. You can call upon them in battle. You can perhaps even attack. There might be, like, a multiplayer, merging a multiplayer and single player there, where you can attack other players' strongholds they built up. I'm not sure about that, But if they're not doing that, there's potential for that. So I think they should. It would, I don't know, it would really encourage people to like try to battle their friends and see if they can best them and build up a stronger stronghold and build up better armies. But you can siege these strongholds that look like they might be other players' bases. In the gameplay they showed, there was an Uruk big guy named Bruise, and he was very comical. And there was extended dialogue and very humorous dialogue, very well-written dialogue with the members of your Uruk army that you're building up. So overall, I think Shadow of War is going to be a big hit this year, and definitely looking forward to it. And for sure, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, highlight of Microsoft's press conference. Wrapping up, there was a live piano solo that accompanied in presenting the next game in the Ori series, which is Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which just seems like another Ori game. I'd never played it before. Seemed like a pretty creative indie game. People that are fans of Ori, this probably won't disappoint. I don't know, there's not much to go off of, honestly. And then finally they closed with something that is astounding, very unexpected to me. And of course we know how Microsoft had backwards compatibility for 360 games. They are now doing it with original Xbox games. And that just blew me away. I'm like, wow, they really are going all in on this. People are going to love this. And the library will include big games that people definitely want remastered. One of them, the one they mentioned specifically, was Crimson Skies. And I've never played the game, don't know much about the game, but I do know that it's a real big hit and people really liked it. I don't know, maybe cult classic, but it might have been more popular than that. So, yeah, and then they talked a little more about their enhancement program. 5 titles that are going to get free 4K enhancements, like Gears of War 4 and all that for the Xbox Enhanced program with the Xbox One X. And then there's also going to be 30 third-party titles that are going to get Xbox enhancement improvements as well. That's at least shows that developers are mostly getting behind the Xbox One X now. And one theme that was kind of repeated throughout the conference was repeated for a final time here was that Xbox has the largest and most diverse lineup of games. To some extent, I would say that's probably true. I mean, certainly as far as what they showed off in their conference, it was the largest and most diverse lineup. I mean, as you can see, this video's taken over 35 minutes for me to do. There's so many games here. But in general, as far as stuff that's exclusive to that platform, that may not actually be the case after all. But we got good news for the Xbox One X, or at least I feel it's good news. One of the things in my paper that I mentioned before, that business report, was that I recommended they release the Xbox One X, this Project Scorpio at the time, at a price point between $500 and $600, and they released it at $499, right at $500 basically. So kudos to them. They released it at a good price. I mean, it's just $100 more expensive than what a normal console at the beginning of a console generation would generally be, and it's the most powerful console. So I think $500 is a good price point for it. And that's going to be launching November 7 worldwide. Now, before offering my final conclusions on the Microsoft conference and the future of Xbox, there was one more game they showed off, which was BioWare's Anthem. So Patrick Zunderland from EA came out to present the game. There was a slight, I guess, teaser, you could say, at EA's press conference, and they're showing off the gameplay here at Microsoft running on the Xbox One X. And the visuals certainly look good. Basically, Anthem seems to be a post-apocalyptic kind of sci-fi. Well, it's not really clear if they're on Earth. They're probably maybe on another planet. There's large tropical kind of like jungle area, I guess, but it's very open. Looks like it could have been inhabited by another alien race at some point. So I don't know if it's an Earth or another planet, but a very lush, vibrant green environment. But I don't know if they'll be able to capitalize on that, as this seems to be not as much of like a single-player experience like Mass Effect or Dragon Age, but more co-op or multiplayer focused. The overall impression I got from the game is it's basically EA trying to capitalize on the success of Destiny and trying to make their own form of Destiny. The gameplay and look of it seems to be an amalgamation of like Mass Effect and Horizon Zero Dawn in terms of the look of the environment, and Dark Void even, that one game from Capcom, which I actually thought was pretty good, but it didn't sell too well. It may be first person in some hub areas or during dialogue, or perhaps that's just for cutscenes, but the bulk of the gameplay, the combat is going to be in third person. There's like lots of mech combat, and it seems like the mech or exosuits that they wore were bipedal exosuits as you expect, but they're like animals where the hind legs are kind of like branches forward. So there's like an extra joint or extra ligament in the legs. So obviously, animals like velociraptors or just any fast moving animals, but like as far as dinosaurs go, velociraptors were very fast, and that's because of their leg design. Same design as a bird leg, basically, is what the mech suits, the exosuits, look like. So I'm assuming that's their and they are humans. You do play as a human in the game. You see the character, the girl, getting into a mech suit, and she is fully human. Her legs look fully human. There's no extra joints. So apparently they just have an extension on there that somehow works properly with the human body, and I'm assuming just provides extra speed and mobility. They also did some of that like fake mic chat stuff that Ubisoft's famous for, which I wasn't really a big fan of. But the gameplay looks like it has a lot of potential. Whether or not they'll capitalize on that and whether or not it will end up being meaningful or it'll just feel like another looter shooter, we'll have to see. One other cool thing was the dynamic weather that they had in the game, which is becoming a fairly common thing in a lot of open world games nowadays, and it seemed pretty good. The weather effects were fantastic as far as I could tell. And at the end, the players, they got together. It's very co-op-ish, kind of like Destiny and Division. But they were going to this big, like, electrical storm orb thing or something like that, which I imagine they might just, like, take you there, and that's going to be like a raid, some form of, like, a raid event. And it's just going to be instanced, so it'll, like, teleport you into a different location, so you're outside of the game world, and there won't be interference from other players or whatnot. That's just how I'm guessing. There's still a lot of unknown factors about this game. But this game has the potential to actually do this genre justice and open it up to new players that have not really cared for that type of experience before, or it could just be another one of them or even fail miserably and be just another thing that people hate about these type of co-op loot-based shooters. The final thing I will say about Anthem is the world is definitely right for strong story. BioWare is a great developer for strong story. Whether or not the approach to the gameplay structure will hold it back, we'll have to wait and see. But all I can say is this world needs strong lore. It's right for that lore, and if they don't incorporate that in there, even with the gameplay structure, they've missed out on a huge market of people that just won't play the game if it doesn't have that, if it doesn't have those aspects that BioWare is known for in their storytelling and gameplay design. And Anthem is slated to come out in 2018. So in conclusion, did Xbox meet their goal? Did they show off the Scorpio well, show the promise that it has, and did they bring back Xbox exclusives? Well, the answer is yes and no. Yes, they showed off a lot of games. Yes, they showed off console launch exclusives and console exclusives, which means out of the consoles it's coming to, it's only coming to Xbox. But in the end, with the exception of maybe a couple titles, you can play the vast majority of those games on other platforms, namely PC. Now, for people who are opposed to getting into PC gaming and just want the console experience, then yeah, Xbox may end up being the place to play. But a lot of those, as you heard me say, were console launch exclusives, which means they're eventually coming to PS4 and perhaps even the Nintendo Switch. And more or less every single game that they showed off is either already on PC or will be coming to PC. Secondly, they didn't exactly support the Scorpio in the same way because they said they weren't going to make Scorpio exclusive games, but all these games are also playable anywhere across the Xbox One family on the Xbox One, Xbox One S, or Xbox One X. So the Scorpio or Xbox One X is just the definitive place to play the games. But people that already have an Xbox One probably aren't going to go out and bother to buy an Xbox One X just to have, better graphics, higher frame rates, and 4K resolutions. So for me, who had a PlayStation last generation and I have a PS4 this generation, but I mainly try to focus on PC gaming now, I have absolutely no incentive to go and buy an Xbox because most of those games are going to be coming to PC where I prefer to play anyways. Yes, they come to the Windows 10 store, and I'm not going to be able to get them on Steam, but that's a small compromise. It's not something that's going to justify me going out and buying a $500 or even $250 console just to play those games. But as I mentioned, there is a large market that doesn't want to get into PC gaming, and for them, even if the Scorpio isn't well supported, at least a lot of them will be buying those games on the Xbox One, and people might just buy a standard Xbox One or an Xbox One X or Xbox One S. See, I got that confused or misspoke. It'll be as cheap as $250. So will this be enough to get Xbox back up where they should be? I don't know, only time will tell, but my gut says that they may still be struggling for quite a bit, and this might not do it for them. Once again, I'll probably post that business report that I did somewhere at some point in time if you guys want to take a look at it and dig a little more into this and what my insights are on it, but that's all I'm going to say about that in this video. So moving on to final thoughts on the conference itself and my final verdict. Microsoft showed off a lot of great games, and they focused games. I mean, there was nothing but games. There's so many games. This video is going over 40 minutes now. It's ridiculous. So, yes, they showed off a lot of games, but for somebody covering E3, it's very difficult to do that because they were going so fast. Had to pause the stream sometimes, or I had to rewatch it later just to make sure I caught all the release dates. So yeah, the structure was maybe a bit overwhelming, but they did focus on the games, so I have to give them credit for that. And their focus on how the games will play well, and just the overall generally decent to good effort made on their part to sell the Scorpio as the definitive Xbox experience, I have to give them credit for that as well. So with all these factors considered, I'd say Microsoft has had one of their best press conferences yet, and my final grade for Microsoft's E3 2017 press conference is a solid A-. Throughout the video, I've mentioned the main things that have held it back, but it's possible they could win E3 this year. Bethesda may be able to do it, I think, and Sony may be able to do it, but I'm not very hopeful for Ubisoft. But hopefully, they're not having Aisha Taylor this year, so hopefully that will, decrease the on-stage antics and focus more on the games. But Microsoft had a pretty good year at E3 this year, and I look forward to seeing what they have in store for the future. So until next time, thank you guys for watching this video. Please check out some of the other videos on our channel, including E3 coverage, and be sure to subscribe or leave a like if you like this video and you like what we do here. So once again, thank you guys for watching, and we hope to see you guys in the next video. Also, if you sat through this entire video, God bless you. You are a real trooper. Whoa.
This storm is getting crazy. So what are we supposed to do? Fly into it?
Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind?
All right, let's do this.
What? What the fuck?
See you on the other side.
Our story is out there.
What a dumbass.